But the real answer is actually the American Civil War, or as I like to call it, the war where one side went, how about we give those slaves some actual human rights? While the other side went, how about you go fuck yourself? Magic. It might seem like a cool idea to be bestowed with the powers of a sorcerer. I mean, you see Harry Potter on the big screen waving his wand around until stuff comes out of it and think, damn, I wish I could do that. But did you know that magic is actually Satan in disguise? So yeah, case closed. Someone released a few weather balloons, people thought they were Japanese planes, the whole city was blacked out and 5 people died. And that's where our story ends. Or is it? Yeah, it is. Apparently this statement was a bit too much for 11 American states to handle. Namely, Texas, 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 nobody cares, and Florida. I mean, imagine giving slaves their freedom. We might as well just give women the right to vote while we're at it. What is this, communist China? Those 11 states apparently couldn't go on without their daily dose of crimes against humanity. I mean, what? We're just supposed to hire people and give them actual money so that they do work willingly? What is this, communist China? Now the idea was probably made by some guy who just wanted an excuse to masturbate at work, but the head of the British spies, Mansfield Cumming, loved the idea because according to him, every man had his own stylo. Yep, that is a real quote from the head of one of the best spy organizations at the time. Every guy's got a pencil dick. Have you ever been watching boxing or wrestling and thought, this just isn't gory enough? I mean, gloves, a soft stretchy ring, a referee and rules. I didn't know I was watching fucking Barbie in the Dream House. Where's the permanent physical damage? Where's the chance of going into a coma forever? If I'm paying $50 a month for cable, I better at least see someone die on live TV. If you've ever had any of these thoughts, please consider therapy. But if you're American and can't afford it, the Greeks have you covered. Thankfully, the Jackalopterus went extinct a few million years later, when God was messing around with his controls and was like, I wonder what this button does. Oh. Most of the European countries had spent the years before the war fucking Africa in the ass and then stealing all its cash like a one-night stand off of Craigslist. But the most accepted theory says that the thing that caused all the shooting was, drumroll please, a weather balloon. Yep, a glorified plastic bag filled with hydrogen that was silver in color. A few of them were launched before the attack to study the weather, and some guy probably saw them and said, those kinda sorta maybe slightly look like a plane. Must be the Japanese. No, they're just weather balloons. Huh, interesting. That's exactly what a Japanese spy would say. I'm too tired for this. You know what, fuck it. It's a plane, call the police, I don't care. I knew it. You know, when American duty calls, only I stand tall. That makes no sense. The US also had some weird ways to spy on people. In the 1960s, they launched Project Acoustic Kitty. Their plan was to surgically implant microphones into the skull of cats so that it could spy on the Russians. In theory, this was a pretty good idea, because most people's reaction when they see a cat is, oh, that's a cute cat. Instead of, I know you're a spy. Who sent you here? Was it the CIA? Reveal your secrets, feline. At around 7 miles from the finish line, I guess Thomas's helpers realized that he wasn't exactly in the best shape. And so they said, you know what, our athlete is clearly struggling. It would be quite immoral and wrong to force him to keep going. You have a point. After all, he is human and deserves some respect. Yeah. Anyway, let's force feed him drugs and tell him to keep going. And if you were wondering if they cared at all about the immense amount of radiation this would release into the world, hey, just forget about it, I'm back, yeah, it's me, I'm a recurring character now. And look at little Timmy over here, look how much fun he's having with his 3 arms, ain't that right, Timmy? I can feel my organs rotting away at every passing second. Yeah, that's the spirit, attaboy. You see, radiation's completely fine. Now we don't exactly know what the oldest natural mummy is, because apparently humans back then were really good at dying at exactly the right place to avoid decomposition. I mean, if I had a nickel for every time we found an old dead guy at the bottom of a swamp or in the middle of the desert, I'd have like 20 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened 20 times. Hey there, dear viewer. Did you know that you're gonna die? Now that's not a threat. That's a promise. We're all just ants on a stick marching towards the inevitable death of the universe, and there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. How's that existential crisis coming along? Doesn't matter, because soon everyone will forget about you, and all that's left will be a completely different world where you basically never existed. How are you feeling? Surely there's a way to stop that, right? I mean, there must be a way to preserve me after I die at least. Well then, viewer who I've tormented for absolutely no reason, I'm glad you asked. We're talking about mummies. Yeah, I don't know why that intro was so dramatic. He started living on the streets in a clay battle with absolutely nothing to his name. He did have a single wooden bowl with him at first, but then he saw a kid on the streets drinking from his hands and realized what a fool he was. Of course, how could I claim to be living a simple life when I'm being spoiled with such expensive products? So he immediately destroyed the bowl so that he could finally be free from all material possessions. You know, he could have just given the ball to the kid on the streets, but hold on there, buddy, that sounds an awful lot like capitalism to me. Have you ever wanted to rob a bank, burn a building down, kill someone? If you answered yes to any of those, please stay far away from me. Now most of these assassination attempts are the same. Guy gets a gun, he shoots, he misses, and everyone goes home. There's no drama, there's no uniqueness. If I'm gonna see someone get killed in broad daylight, I want it to be creative, goddammit. Eventually, Egypt banned the export of mummies out of their country, and Europe's obsession with mummies ended. So next time anyone asks you why we have so few Egyptian mummies left, you can look them right in the eye and tell them it's because we ate them all. Our next law comes from the hellhole that is California, where having a pet ferret is illegal for some reason, but YouTubers are given human rights. Absolutely disgraceful. The Egyptians liked their cats so much that, during a battle with the Persians who were trying to invade them in 525 BC, the Persians painted images of cats on their shields and held cats in front of them while attacking. The Egyptians were so scared of accidentally injuring a cat and offending the cat girl god that they chose to surrender and run away. This led to Persia winning the battle and taking over Egypt, all because of a goddamn cat girl. I guess we haven't changed a single bit. He also once visited a cathedral where the priest told him that the floor was always wet because of the blood of the people who sacrificed themselves that miraculously kept flowing. Nope, that's just bat piss. What? You know, bats. Little rat bastards with the wings they keep flapping around. It's their piss. Bat piss. How do you know? I mean, unless you've got another guy that's eaten an entire forest worth of animals, I think you can trust me on animal taste tests. So, this isn't the magic blood of sacrificed people? Nope. So, here's your daily cup of sacrificial blood. Yeah, about that. And now at this point you might be wondering, how did the sunfish make it this far? I mean, how did this rotting, parasite-infested chunk of meat that's too big to be eaten, that can't grow a tail and can't swim to save its life, how did this manage to survive for 50 million years? Well kids, just like every Z-list, clickbait, 3 AM challenge only fetuses watch them YouTubers, the answer is simple. Quantity over quality. So in this video, I, as a YouTuber qualified in absolutely nothing, I'm gonna tell you guys why some animals just don't deserve to live on the same planet as me. Mostly because I'm absolutely terrified of them. And so, Mohammed needed to get some money fast. So he came up with a plan to increase taxes for the people in this region, who are mostly farmers. Again, another great idea from the man himself. There's no way he could mess this up, right? I mean, it's literally just asking people for money. The only way this could go wrong is if God himself... Hey, we haven't had a drought in a while, have we? Well, wouldn't hurt to do it now. Yep, just when he thought that Muhammad would finally succeed, nature itself abused its unholy powers to change the world's weather patterns just to make sure that it doesn't happen. But if it still existed today, it would have the power to pick a kid right off the ground and start eating his organs in broad daylight. Or even worse, steal the food that you just ordered right out of your hands. Absolutely terrifying. He also had the habit of standing upright because he wanted his organs to be naturally aligned, which I'm pretty sure was him just trying to act like he was 6 feet tall. But then again, he was a high-ranking military general remembered throughout history, while I'm just a guy who talks to himself on the internet. So you know what? Standing upright, arm raised up, this might actually be the secret to success. This looks really bad, doesn't it? So to every medieval peasant out there watching,
Are you tired of your boring life? Stuck tending to your piss-poor crops in your piss-poor house, meanwhile your neighbor's out here growing the best potatoes you've ever seen? Do you just want to make him disappear, but can't afford a quality assassin? Well, all you gotta do is tell your local priest that those potatoes look a little too perfect, and they'll take care of it for you. Yup, I can smell the Satan on these ones. Dude, come on, I just use fertilizer, it's not that hard. Fertil what? Stop speaking in tongues, you fucking devil worshipper. Take him away, boys. Plato's philosophy was all about abstract concepts and thought experiments. Pretty highbrow stuff. Diogenes, of course, was the complete opposite of that.
So what were people supposed to do if the nukes started falling? Well, most people would probably hide in a bunker or in their basement, but I guess Americans looked at kids in school and said, yeah, we can afford to lose those. The Americans also sent then Vice President Richard Nixon to attend the exhibition. It was at this point that Nixon met the Soviet leader Khrushchev. Nixon wanted to show him how great America was and decided to give him a cup of Pepsi. Cause what is more quintessentially American than a bottle of liquefied diabetes with enough calories to make you Pepsi a doctor? Now I think we can all agree that being knighted by the Queen of England is a pretty special thing. I mean, it's only given out to people who've truly achieved something. People who've cured diseases. People who've worked their whole lives to help others. People who are lucky enough to be born into a royal family. You know, the people who really deserve it. The next pharaoh on our list is a guy named Akhenaten. He was initially called Amenhotep IV, and at the time, the people of Egypt worshipped a bunch of gods and goddesses. Amenhotep was fine with that, and it was all going smoothly, until around 5 years into his rule, when he suddenly snapped and went, you know what, screw this, screw you, and screw Egypt. Your shoes are whack, your gods are fake, I'm gonna change my name and worship the sun god. Sir, this is a Wendy's. On a more inspirational note, you also had a Cuban mailman named Felix Carbajal, who had to raise money to come to the Olympics by trekking through the entirety of Cuba. What a truly inspirational show of human willpower. Then he instantly ruined it by immediately gambling away the rest of his money as soon as he reached America, which led to him having to walk all the way to the Olympics. He finally showed up to the race dressed in a full-sleeved shirt, full-length trousers, a belt, and to top it all off, a fucking beret. But how did the everyday Spartan really live? Were their lives completely devoted to the military? Is it true that Sparta was invented by the CIA to sell more gym memberships? Well, I guess we'll find out. People started envisioning a new world where everything was powered by nuclear energy, like actual uranium in every single household appliance. Nuclear cars, nuclear lights, hell, Grandma's feeling a bit tired? Shove some uranium in that bitch. It's the atomic age, baby. When you think of a war in American history with the most casualties, what normally comes to mind? Certain events do stick out, like World War I, World War II, the 2013 battle for the last PS4 on Black Friday. You know, stuff where you got Americans sacrificing their lives to save the world, or save $1.50 on overpriced clothing. But the real answer is actually the American Civil War, or as I like to call it, the war where one side went, how about we give those slaves some actual human rights? While the other side went, how about you go fuck yourself? So I'm here making a second call out post on my youtube.com. Evolution pissed all over the gene pool and now there's animals that have some massive design flaws roaming around like it's no big deal. Absolutely unacceptable. The US was, understandably, pretty mad at Japan. So they called them up and were like, Japan, I can't believe you've done this. Apologize right now or we'll have no choice but to attack you. What are you talking about? What did I do? You know damn well what you did. Now say sorry or you'll be sorry. Okay, is this about the time we tried to assassinate your president by adding a kilogram of cyanide to his morning coffee? Wait, you tried to do that? Yeah? I mean, no, of course no. I mean, we'd never do that. Why would you do that? That's a stupid idea. Anyway, what are you talking about? I'm talking about the planes that you just flew over Los Angeles. What planes? We didn't fly any of ours today. All of them are right here. Oh, so you're saying I just imagined you guys trying to attack the US? Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. Oh, okay then. Imagine that you're a biologist in the 1800s. Sea exploration is absolutely booming, and new parts of the world are being discovered every single day. With that comes new land, new resources, and of course, new animals. You start thinking of all the new possibilities for your research. Maybe you'll find an animal that no one's ever seen before. Maybe you will finally become the well-respected scientist you always wanted to be. Maybe you'll... Hey, are you gonna eat that? No, of course not. This is the first animal of its kind, and I need to do a lot of research. It took me 5 months to find that thing. I'd give it a 4. Needs more salt. Nero, are you gonna kill me? What? No, I'd never do that. Yeah, that's good enough.
Running a pirate ship, especially a big one, was no easy task, and every ship had a crew of several people just to keep the ship going. The average ship's crew consisted of what you'd normally expect. You had the captain, who ran the ship, the quartermaster, who was second in command and took over if the captain died, the second mate, who took over if the quartermaster died, the third mate, who took over if the second mate died. Yeah, dying was very common on these ships. So there they lay, untouched for thousands of years, a true pinnacle of scientific progress. You know, it would be a real shame if someone were to knock knock. It's Europe, with their limited knowledge of science and their unquenchable thirst for more resources. Sparta first came into existence when these 4 villages came together under one town to form the state of Sparta, and at this point, it was all pretty chill for them. They were in a nice fertile valley, unlike those other fools, so they had a bunch of food for their people, and they spent most of their time writing poems and making pottery. How sweet of them. They were truly living the life of an early civilization. But just like every other early civilization, it all changed when they discovered the wonders of slavery. Guys, I'm in a bit of a dilemma here. I need your help choosing what my next video is going to be about. I mean, on one hand, you have ancient Greece, considered to be the birthplace of democracy. One of the most advanced civilizations of ancient times, it resulted in immense developments in art, philosophy, science, and definitely deserves to be talked about more. On the other hand, there's Sparta. They have a knife. I think I'm gonna go with Sparta. Throughout these games, men were the only ones allowed to watch or participate, and women were completely banned from these games. And if a woman was caught trying to sneak her way in, they'd just fucking kill her. Which might seem a bit excessive, but then again, I too wouldn't let anything get in the way of me and the boys enjoying some naked, oiled up muscular guys. The pyramids of Giza took around 20 years to build, and they were pretty advanced pieces of architecture, especially for being almost 5,000 years old. In fact, it took us 4,000 years to figure out how to make something taller than them. Just goes to show that all you need to do something great is hard work, dedication, the powers of a god, and a shit ton of cash. How inspirational. But they held strong, and after a long fight, the English managed to get the Spanish to retreat from the fort and stop attacking them. Finally, the English had an actual chance to succeed. Well boys, we've reached the shores of Cadiz. You know, maybe this attack wasn't really planned out that well, and maybe we didn't have enough food and money to actually make this work properly. And maybe we just lost most of our ships and soldiers and only 10 of us are actually here. I forgot where I was going with this. But the point is, we still have each other, and we're gonna take this city over if it's the last thing we do. When you think of the world's largest military superpowers, what normally comes to mind? The US, with a military budget that's larger than the GDP of the countries that they're bombing? North Korea, who somehow got 25% of its population to join the military with just a little bit of motivation? By motivation, I mean threatening them and their family with the death penalty, of course, but hey, you know what? Some people just need a push in the right direction. Or maybe you thought of the other 195 countries in the world. I don't care, cause you're wrong. The answer is Pepsi. Bet you didn't see that one coming. But one of the worst medical problems in ancient Egypt that they couldn't even find a cure for was one called Schistosomiasis. It's dickworms. I just gotta put that out there. You give it a fancy, hard to pronounce name so nobody will find out, but it doesn't change the fact that it's dickworms. You guys ever messed up? You know, the waitress brings you your food, says enjoy your meal, and you say you too? Now the cat, being a cat, wasn't very interested in spying and instead just wandered off onto a nearby road where it was immediately hit by a car. The project was abandoned after that and it was considered a total catastrophe. Thank you everybody, this is what you subscribed for. This is peak comedy, I'm completely talentless. So dysentery was a pretty common disease, but the real killer was scurvy. Fresh fruits like oranges and lemons couldn't be on the ship for long, for obvious reasons, and so most pirates had no source of vitamin C, often for months at a time. This caused their gums to start bleeding, their teeth to fall out, and if left untreated, could even cause death. In fact, it's estimated that around 50% of all sailors during this time died from scurvy. It's pretty ironic, isn't it? These guys were surrounded by ocean for months at a time, and they still couldn't find enough vitamin C. Yes, I'm very lonely.
This event was first seen by Mrs. Crouch, who was crouching outside her house making soap, as you do, when she saw pieces of meat falling from the sky. Her first thought was probably, well, I guess someone ordered some Kentucky Fried Chicken. Get it? 'Cause the meat flew through the sky? I know, I'm really funny.
And worst of all, the witches were having sex. But not just any sex, they were having sex with Satan. Another thing that the Spartans did was take an animal like a goat or a sheep every morning and cut it open and read its organs. They would only go into battle if the organs were favorable. Now I can't exactly vouch for the effectiveness of this practice, but if I was preparing to fight someone and they started cutting open live animals, I'm not saying I believe in it, but I ain't gonna fuck around and find out. Now, pirates have been a thing pretty much ever since we invented boats and ships. I mean, humans have been stealing shit on land for years at this point, so it was only a matter of time until someone went, wait a minute, that boat's got a lot of very expensive and valuable stuff on it, and they don't have any security at all guarding it. If only there was a way to rob something that's in the ocean instead of on land. Hey, you wanna buy a boat? Now, probably the most famous thing about ancient Egypt is the pyramids of Giza. I mean, there's just something about old stuff stacked on top of each other that really gets both tourists and conspiracy theorists going. I mean, come on, give those ancient humans some credit. I've seen 2-year-olds play with Legos, okay? I'm pretty sure we didn't need alien help to figure out how to put stuff on top of other stuff and have it stay there. The real question is, why were they built in the first place? Is it aliens? Please say it's aliens. Are you running out of episode ideas? Yeah. A real war would have probably been too expensive for both the US and the Soviets, and considering the USSR lost 15% of its total population in World War II, the only thing they needed a war against right now was their declining birth rate. But by far the weirdest thing he ever did happened when he visited a friend of his who wanted to show him something cool that he found. Oh hey William, come here, I want to show you something. Look at this. It's the 140-year-old heart of King Louis XIV of France. It's extremely rare and very valuable. Oh wow, you know, I've never actually eaten the heart of a king before. Okay, no, I'm not gonna let you eat such a valuable piece of history. That heart is staying right there in this... William? Where'd the heart go? William? You ate the heart, didn't you? Yup, and it sure was a hearty meal. These witch trials continued on into the 16th and 17th century, but as time went on, they were slowly falling out of fashion. There were always people who didn't believe in witchcraft, but as time went on, more and more people started going, well, all the witches are dead, and I'm still living in poverty. Guys, I think we might have fucked up here. And to be fair, the Olympics is the one thing that brings people together, no matter what. I mean, 2 world wars, literally Hitler, the Olympics just can't be stopped. Except by 2020, of course. Nothing gets past 2020. And so, in 1918, France decided to start building a second Paris, a few miles near the actual one. It was going to be a perfect replica of Paris, complete with all the main landmarks, all made out of wood. But fortunately for France, the war ended a few months later when the construction of the city had barely begun, and not much money was wasted. To think that if the war had gone on for an extra year, we would today be able to enjoy all of Paris without ever interacting with a French person. What a shame. But those things are pretty inconsequential stuff in the grand scheme of things. But what about something bigger? What if I told you that the US was attacked by its worst enemy in the middle of the biggest war in history? Except for the fact that the attack never happened and everyone just imagined that it did. I mean, I guess that's pretty interesting. What are you doing in my house? There's a bird that's only found in New Zealand called the kakapo. This one isn't useless through any fault of its own, except for the fact that it's really nice and friendly. Like when humans come near it, it just walks right up to them and just vibes with no fear. Which is nice and all, except for the fact that when humans arrived to New Zealand, they also brought over animals like cats. And believe me, your sweet little kitten would like nothing better than to rip apart the throat of an unsuspecting bird, especially an unsuspecting bird that literally walks right up to it. There's a bunch of different myths about the origins of the Olympics, all of them involving strong Greek warriors, a princess who needed to be married, murder, arson, and somehow Zeus always ends up having sex with someone. You know, classic Greek mythology. Well, It was believed that witches worshipped the devil and used his powers to fuck with people in town. They'd insult religious symbols, fly through the air, turn into animals, murder children. Did I mention that they'd kidnap, murder, and eat children? These medieval guys didn't sugarcoat their folklore, that's for sure. One time, some people tried to insult Diogenes by calling him a dog and throwing bones at him. So, Diogenes did the obvious thing, and got down on all fours and pissed on all of them. The discovery of the tomb was, obviously, front page news, and this led to King Tut becoming famous all around the world, all because he was so forgettable when he lived. So just remember, if you ever feel worthless and ignored, just make sure to bury yourself underground with tons of gold at the age of 18, and you will have guaranteed fame 3000 years later. So, the Soviet Union considered all its options and eventually decided to pay Pepsi an entire navy's worth of ships and submarines. Now this might raise a few questions in your mind, like, did they just have these lying around? What's Pepsi gonna do with military battleships? Why? Just why actually, yeah, that's pretty much it. Kentucky is the state we all know and love, that's famous for making deep fried buckets of cardiac arrest. What could be more American than that? Apparently, nobody bothered to ask him why he had that many guns, but to be fair, if I saw Giuseppe the sheep-whispering pedophile carrying a bunch of deadly weapons, I'd probably just mind my own business. So kids, welcome to the Bulbasaurav show, the place where we conduct definitely legal experiments for YouTube content. Don't try this at home, but if you do, I was never here. Today we're going to be making an authentic Egyptian mummy just like grandma used to make all those years ago. Speaking of parties, Francis would often spice events up by releasing rats and snakes from his coat. Where did he get those? Were they poisonous? Was this even legal? Those are very good questions, but unfortunately, everyone was too busy with trying not to die. If the baby survived, it was then time for the council to judge its fate. This was basically a bunch of old guys who looked at kids all day and judged if they were fit enough. So basically what the Catholic Church does. But first, we gotta talk about how the Civil War started in the first place. I mean, you'd think a country called the United States of America would be able to keep its shit together, but apparently not. That's like Toys R Us running out of toys. Oh wait, they did that. That's like Amazon running out of underpaid workers. Speaking of California, in the city of Chico, it's illegal to detonate nuclear bombs, and if you were gonna do that, you'll have to pay a whole $500 as a fine. So basically $500,000 for the destruction of an entire city. Sounds like a good deal to me. Through the next few months on the West Coast, pretty much anything that dared to exist in the water was reported as Japanese ships and submarines. You're trying to catch some fish? Japanese spy. You're going for a swim? Japanese spy. You're a whale? Japanese spy. The Egyptian mummies are probably the most famous kind of mummies in the world, probably because of the process used and how well they were preserved, but most likely because of the giant monoliths of solid rock filled with precious gems and metals that they were stored in. Yeah, they're kinda hard to miss, aren't they? Imagine taking a leisurely walk in the forest and then hearing the sound of an Apache helicopter coming towards you and thinking, well, World War III probably started, so I think I'm gonna die now. Then this fucker pops out and you realize that dying would have been the much better option. So overall, sunfish, more like dumb fish. Yes, thank you, no, thank you. I am a comedy genius. I'll be here all night. This is the pinnacle of comedy right here. Holy shit, you guys should subscribe. Now remember at the beginning how I was talking about people with great ideas who just can't make them work? Can you guess who I was talking about? Huh, yourself? Yellow tape around his body. Now there is a common myth that the pyramids were built by slaves who were forced to do it, but in reality, they were actually built by paid workers who did their job willingly. I mean, the Egyptian pharaohs might have been obsessed with money and power, but they weren't evil or anything. I mean, they did use slaves for farming and housework, but at least they weren't used as pyramids, so progress? Hey America, watch this! How do you like that? One of the most famous interactions between them happened when Plato was giving a lecture and decided to define humans as featherless bipeds. When he heard of this, Diogenes of course had to immediately burst through the window and drop down a fully plucked chicken that he got from somewhere. You don't want to know where he's been. Then he went, yeah Plato, here's your human, you dumb fuck. Not so smart now are you, Mr. 700-page book that no one reads. He then proceeded to take a shit on the floor and pass out. That last part didn't actually happen, but if it did, I wouldn't question it.
Russia considered Serbia its orthodox cousin. So what do you do if your cousin's being bullied at school? You show up to the school with a knife and the problem just solves itself. So the moral of the story is that you should never be friends with anyone because they'll always end up killing you. Or at least that's what I tell myself when I get lonely. The world is ending. The day of retribution is here. God is punishing us for our sins. I knew I shouldn't have masturbated. You've probably seen or at least heard of Sparta at some point in your life, mostly to A-list Hollywood celebrities running around shirtless with oiled up rock-hard abs, but that movie made $450 million, so it's really your fault for being so detrimentally horny. And this also included various bodily functions. You could be having a regular conversation with him one day and he'd just pop a squat and let one out, just like God intended. I mean, what? Was he supposed to just not take a shit in public like some sort of absolute beta male? Now for the last segment of the show, it's called Why the Fuck Was That in the Olympics? The show that'll make you go, why the fuck was that in the Olympics? For some reason, Stonewall always believed that one of his arms was bigger than the other, and one of his legs was bigger than the other. His solution to fix this problem was to occasionally lift an arm up so that blood would flow down from the heavy arm back into the body and everything would be equal. As you can tell, this test was pretty hard to get out of, unless you had perfect skin in the 1600s, which is like having a stable job in today's economy. The moral of the story is, eat your siblings? Yeah, sure, why not? Eat your siblings before they eat you. Cool, okay. Oh hey, it's me, I've taken this physical form now, don't question it. Now 2020 has, undoubtedly, been a pretty shit year. I mean, I haven't seen people hate something so unanimously since YouTube Rewind, and that thing didn't even kill anyone. So it's safe to say that it's not exactly been the best year. But I just want to say thank you for making 2020 a lot better for me. To all the people who watch my videos, like, comment, subscribe, and of course my patrons who give me actual money, how did that happen? I just want to thank you all for making my life goals go from completely impossible to slightly more possible. I also feel like I've gotten a lot better at making videos this year, and I hope I've been able to make your 2020 just a little bit better. I mean, if you stuck around this far, I assume you at least tolerate my videos. So yeah, that was my channel in 2020, and here's to a much better 2021. It can't get worse than this, can it? Anyway, now that Corona's completely over, I'm gonna go outside and cough directly into the mouth of a complete stranger. I'll see you guys later.